Go, bring them out, bring them out. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. What you see on your screen right now, our Week 3 NFL Power Ranking tiers. For the next couple minutes, be prepared to be very entertained. If you're new to the channel, don't worry. We're about to break down these tiers and give you an understanding of what we're about to dive into. So we're going to start off with hunting talent. These are the teams who I believe are hunting talent. And that's not just the product on the field. That's not just the players on the field making the plays. That can be front office. That can be executives. That can be coaches. We're looking at also the people who put these players in position to make these plays. So you're hunting talent. You may not be in the best situation right now, and these teams are not all bad. These are the teams who I believe just aren't there yet with the rest of the tier. So I believe they're hunting talent right now. Getting into our next tier, we got skeptical / sneaky. This is a very interesting one. You're probably wondering, what does that even mean? But I think these are teams that you're not counting on them to really beat you, but they're very, very sneaky. These are not bad teams in this tier per se. It is a lower tier, but I think that it's looking at teams that are also skeptical, because while they can beat you any given Sunday, they may have offensive line problems. They may have defensive line problems, no pass rush. They may have secondary problems. They can't hold up longer than 3 seconds, or they have the guy under the center. He's kind of a liability. Getting into our next tier, we got optimistic. These are the teams where you see the green line. I'm drawing the playoff line. I'm looking at these teams and I'm saying, okay, I'm feeling really good about these teams. And some of these teams are on bridges, because when I say bridges, you can either burn the bridge in week 4 and go down to skeptical / sneaky, or you can either extend the bridge and get into a confident / contender. There is one team who I want to put in that tier, and we're going to get to it when I reveal it, but I got to see this week. So I'm going to hold that off. Getting into our next tier, we got confident / contenders. Again, this is a tier of the playoff teams, but these are the teams that if I had to put my feet to the fire, if you guys ask me in the comments, do you think this team is making the playoffs? I'm booking it, setting it, and forgetting it. I'm 100%, 1,000 million % sure these teams in this tier will make the playoffs, and I believe they have a little run when they get into the playoffs. Now, getting into dominant. These are where we look at teams that separate themselves, and we're going to understand that when we get into this tier, and I'm going to break it down a little bit, but I believe these are the teams that are just dominant right now. And then get into the M. This is a mystery. I don't even want to tell you what this means right now, but we're going to see it when we get to it. So let's get to it. I want to reveal the tiers. Then we're going to talk about our movers and some of the more important things rather than just talking through it as we reveal it. So I want to try that. And you guys let me know down below in the comments what you think about the feedback as we get through it that way. Or do you want to go back to how we did it last week? Of course, it's just feedback. Second edition of this series. So keep that in mind. Now, as we see in hunting talent, we got the Chicago Bears, the Denver Broncos, Las Vegas Raiders, the Arizona Cardinals, and the Carolina Panthers. Pretty interesting teams, albeit, and you can see some arrows. Some arrows of some teams who are going down and some arrows of some teams who are going up. And I think that with the Denver Broncos, 70 points on your head. We're going to get back to this tier, of course. And then the Las Vegas Raiders, a very tough loss on Monday Night Football to the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I'm looking at the Arizona Cardinals. They were in this tier last week, and I have a green arrow on them because they're on a bridge. Like I said, we put the Caleb Williams tag on the Arizona Cardinals, but I think they're trying to play themselves out of that. And I'm seeing how they're playing under Jonathan Gannon, and you can like Jonathan Gannon, you can dislike Jonathan Gannon, but for everything is worth, that team is playing hard. And I look at really the one stain they have on their resume right now. They let the New York Giants come back and win that football game, but also I think that was some attributed to the New York Giants playing good football in the second half. I do still think, what a lot of people don't think, but I do still think there is hope for the New York Giants. We're going to talk about them a little later, but that's what we have right now in hunting talent. Looking at skeptical / sneaky, you see it's a lot of teams, a lot more teams than what you saw in the last tier. Starting off with the Houston Texans, they got themselves out of hunting talent. I'm seeing some things out of the Houston Texans. Of course, we're going to get back to this, but we got the New York Giants, a team with that red arrow. We're going to talk all about it. The Tennessee Titans, a team with that red arrow, and the Washington Commanders, a team with that red arrow. I talked about the Commanders last week, and I said that, yes, they're a very good team. Yes, I respect their wins, and yes, I like their roster, but I want to see, can Sam Howell consistently play at the level in which he played at against Denver? Can he do that against an opponent like a Buffalo? And we saw that he's not there. there just yet. Now, that's not saying the season's over, but I'm kind of skeptical of it. They're still sneaky, though. Looking at the rest of these teams, we got the Jets, Tampa Bay, Minnesota, Indianapolis, Pittsburgh, and New Orleans. These teams haven't moved out of those tiers, so we're looking at that right now. Getting into our next two, we got optimistic. The Green Bay Packers, the Detroit Lions, two teams. I'm going to get back to them and really talk about those two teams because they play on Thursday Night Football. The Cincinnati Bengals with that red arrow. I'm looking at some things, but I still think a very good team. The Seattle Seahawks, the Jacksonville Jaguars, another red arrow. The Cleveland Browns, the Atlanta Falcons, the LA Rams, LA Chargers, and the New England Patriots. Some very interesting teams. I think these are my playoff teams when I'm looking at it right now. Getting into our next tier, we got confident/contenders. I think a lot of people understand these. You can rank them differently, but these are some of the top teams in football. I got the Philadelphia Eagles. What more do they have to say? Now, they're not winning very pretty right now. Still trying to get some things figured out with Brian Johnson. Jalen Hurts has to get out of this slump that he's in just a little bit. It's not a true slump, but we're not seeing some things in which we saw last year. And that could be attributed to an offensive coordinator. That could be attributed to trying to get some things figured out with the new passing schemes, but it's still going to be there. The run game, however, DeAndre Swift is running the football. So we're looking at that with the offensive line. We know what it is. And the defense, come on. Now, we're looking at the Buffalo Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Baltimore Ravens, and the Dallas Cowboys. Yes, I'm still confident in the Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to get back to this topic because I know a lot of people say, you lose to Indianapolis. How are we skeptical/sneaky? How are the Dallas Cowboys still confident/contenders? And they lost to the Arizona Cardinals, who are hunting talent. We're going to talk all about it. But I want to show you another team in my tier. We got dominant. And that's the San Francisco 49ers. Brock Purdy is still going, and a video on his film is coming out very soon if he continues this pace. I'm excited about what he's doing. I love what he's doing. Seeing how he performed without a Brandon Ayuk. Now, he started the game off against New York a bit shaky, but he settled in. And I think that's kind of a theme with him because I saw the game last year against the Dallas Cowboys in that big-time divisional round. Started off a little shaky against those guys and then settled in and won that football game. So, looking at Deebo Samuel, he's looking better this year. He's looking like the guy that we expected last year and kind of had that little slump. Now he's back and better than ever. Christian McCaffrey is, I would say right now, the best back in the league. We can have a little bit of pushback on that. We're seeing some other guys like Bijan had a pretty slow week, but still a very elite runner of the football. And there are some other guys, Nick Chubb, but he's hurt right now. So we're looking at all of that, but I still think a very good back. And then we look at some of the other guys. Like I said, Brandon Ayuk was hurt, but he's still a guy we have to account for. He's their man beater. He's their number one receiver in the receiving game on the outside. And then I look at some other things like George Kittle, the defense, Nicholas John Bosa, Fred Warner, Talanoa Hufanga. I'm looking at all of that. Deommodore Lenoir, Travarius Ward, very good team, and they're showing it right now. Shout out to Kyle Shanahan. And then we have M. I said it was a mystery, but it's no mystery at all. It's the Miami Dolphins. They created their own tier, a brand new tier for the Miami Dolphins. I'm giving it to them. I'm booking it. I'm setting it, forgetting it because I think that you score 70 points. You have the offense clicking like it's clicking. Without a Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Devon Achane out of Texas A&M, a track star. And then you have Raheem Mostert. He's just consistently been solid on every team he's been on. And he can score the football. He can run the football. He can catch the football. Tua is a guy. He was a top 5 pick. Let's stop acting like he wasn't. I said everything for the Miami Dolphins is predicated on the health of Tua Tagovailoa. He's healthy right now. They're performing right now. Don't forget, Jalen Ramsey's coming back. Xavier Howard's in the back end. Javon Holland is going to get you. Bradley Chubb is going to get you. Jalen Phillips. David Long Jr. came over from Tennessee. I'm telling you, they have something working right there, especially with those linebackers, the secondary. You have to look at this team and say, okay, we got Vic Fangio now. He knows how and when to call those plays. I like this team. I think they have their own tier, but let's get back to the general scope of things because you're probably wondering. If you haven't commented already, you're probably like, whoa, why is my team down there? So I really want to touch on the teams with the arrows. And I have a green arrow in the Arizona Cardinals because I look at everything they did and I'm very excited and also happy about how they're playing. I talk about Joshua Dobbs. James Conner is getting out there. He's scoring. If you play fantasy, please get James Conner. He's going to save you a lot of times because he's running the football. He's catching the football. But let's talk about some of their other weapons. Zach Ertz, he's consistently been that veteran and really that safety handle in the middle of the field. But Marquise Hollywood Brown, I like his development, and I talked about this in a video in my recaps of week 3, but I just like how he's not being used as only a deep threat. He's getting those first downs, and he's not dropping the football like we saw with heavy volume in Baltimore. I think that Baltimore would have kept him if it wasn't for the drops, and if he was the player that he is now at that point in time. I mean, he would have been very good. Now you look at drafting Zay Flowers, and I think that the size profile, kind of the athletic profile, they're both explosive, but they're kind of different players in their own right when I look at Zay and then when I look at Hollywood. So, I mean, both teams are probably happy right now. That's just something I brought up. And I look at Rondale Moore. This is a guy who's been special. They use him in different ways. He had a big time run on an inside zone, and I was kind of surprised they even lined him up in the backfield, but he came out of Purdue. He was one of those guys who you look at, is he really going to be that type of receiver that he was at Purdue in the NFL? He's only about 5'8", 5'9", but he's stocky. He squats a lot of weight. So I just like what he's been able to do. I think that Michael Wilson, their receiver, their rookie out of Stanford, he's kind of that bigger body guy in comparison to those two. And you look at him and what he can do. He had a big time touchdown for them. I believe he scored a 70-yard bomb from Josh Dobbs. So I'm looking at all of that and I'm saying, okay, this is a team. They keep playing football. We look at the defense, Zaven Collins, some of those guys, Jalen Thompsons of the world, Marco Wilson, some young guys, but some very good players. So I still want to see what they continue to do. And I'm looking at this team. I'm happy with how they played. Not the Las Vegas Raiders. I think that they played a pretty solid game. Devon Diablo, I'm looking at some of those guys. I'm looking at Nate Hobbs. I'm looking at Max Crosby. Tyree Wilson, once he gets healthy, he's still going to be on this team. But I just think that Jimmy Garoppolo, he's not the answer, especially when I saw how he played, because they had every opportunity in the world to win a football game against a Pittsburgh Steelers team who I think is still searching for an offensive identity. And you look at, okay, yes, they got Jalen Warren involved. Yes, they got George Pickens, who had an amazing game. Calvin Austin had the big time catch on the post where he got behind a safety in a corner. So I look at that and I say, okay, they had some pretty good plays to get them in scoring positions. But outside of that, it was a pretty solid defensive effort by the Las Vegas Raiders. And of course, Matt Canada, he's not the best play caller. He's just not, from what we're seeing. And you run an inside zone. You have Marcus Peters. He's coming up and making tackles for loss like he's an edge rusher. So that's something that we had in the game as well. But like I said, coming back to Jimmy G, Devontae Adams had a huge game. Josh Jacobs had a pretty solid game. But we look at some of the other guys in the weapons like the Hunter Renfrows and the Jacoby Myers, who I thought had a really good game. But I'm just thinking that Jimmy G is slowing some things on this ship. So I don't know, even with Josh McDaniels as the head coach, I don't know what the direction is going to be right now. I think that it's a pretty solid team. I don't think they're the worst team, but they have some spots in which they can fill to get back, especially in the AFC West. When you're looking at all of the other teams you have to compete against, I still think that you're in a position where you find yourself hunting talent. Like I said, I keep going back to Jimmy G because he had 3 boneheaded interceptions, and in their interceptions, you don't understand. It's not, okay, maybe we see the middle of the field is open, so we're throwing this route and we're trying to get our guy underneath. Or maybe we see the middle of the field is closed, so we're trying to get him underneath. Middle of the field open, so we're trying to get him behind that safety. It's nothing we can explain. It's 2 guys on 1 receiver in the Las Vegas Raiders, and Jimmy G throws an innocent interception by a guy like Patrick Peterson. So that's what you have right there. That's what you have to deal with. But like I said, I still think it's a pretty solid team. Just hunting some talent in some different spaces. Maybe a new quarterback, maybe a new head coach. Still talking about that team though. The Denver Broncos. I could do this would be a whole separate video segment if I touched on everything for the Denver Broncos. Now, I would say one thing. Sean Payton. I just think that when you say what you said about Nathaniel Hackett, when Nathaniel Hackett said nothing to Sean Payton at all, this is a bad look. And I don't want to say too much because it's only week 3. I don't want to jump out and overreact. But Sean Payton, you came from the New Orleans Saints. You won a Super Bowl with the New Orleans Saints. I respect that. You went as a TV analyst, worked for different networks and things like that. Now you came back. And I feel like you've gotten a rude awakening. Now, I hope, and I believe just a little bit, the Denver Broncos can turn this around. There are some holes on this team. Garrett Bowles, Mike McGlinchey, some of those different guys that we see on the offensive line. A lot of people aren't happy. We see guys blowing up on the sideline. It's some frustration built up right now in Denver. But I think that I want to see how you answer. The 70 points were already scored. You can't get it back. So if you can go out with the roster that I think you have in place, you still have Russell Wilson. If you can go do that, then I applaud you. Make something out of this season. I would say that's my challenge for the Denver Broncos, but right now it just hasn't looked good. You blow the lead to the Washington Commanders, and then it's looking pretty rough right now. So I just want to see how they do it. I look at the week 1 loss, so it's some different things, but right now I still think they are hunting talent in certain spots, and that could even be coaches, coordinators. And like I said, I still believe in Sean Payton right now, so we're going to see. We're going to see how that plays out. Getting into skeptical / sneaky. I got a green arrow on the Houston Texans, and the reason that I have this is because I love what they're doing right now. And understand one thing to be true. They're going to build a defense with DeMeco Ryans. Right now, they have a couple guys, Jalen Peaches of the world, Will Anderson, Derek Stingley's, Jimmy Ward's, but they're going to build something even scarier with what they have in DeMeco Ryans understanding how to call it. He's not going to be the most exotic guy with the matching coverages and the pattern matches and the different schemes and stuff. He's going to run when he runs, and he's going to run it till he gets a lead at it. That's what we saw in San Francisco. It was cover 3. It was either cover 1 robber. It was cover 2. It was cover 2 man, cover 5. Or it was rarely cover 6, but I think cover 2, cover 3 with a blitz sometimes mixed in there and just man coverage. That's what I saw a majority of the time. Now, when you have a Nick Bosa, some of that could be simplified and you still get after the quarterback. And also they have some other guys on the defensive line, but still coming back to it, I think that's what he's going to try to recreate over there in Houston. So I just want to see what he does, and it's going to take some time, just a little bit. But right now, it's looking like the time is now for the Houston Texans. The way they've been playing in the first 3 games, and the way they played against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Shout out Andrew Beck, fullback / tight end / wing, can do a little bit of it all, but he scored a kickoff return. Now for the Jacksonville Jaguars and the special teams unit and the special teams coach, how do you go in the film and say, we let this happen? I think that's a pretty tough situation that you're going to have to face, that you probably already faced coming from Sunday. But I'm looking at that and I'm saying CJ Stroud, Tank Dell, Robert Woods, Nico Collins, Devin Singletary, Damian Pierce, they have some things working. A Shaq Mason, a Laramie Tunsil, when they're fully healthy, a Shaq Mason, a Laramie Tunsil, a Titus Howard. I mean, they have Juice Scruggs, they drafted him. So it's a foundation there. And they're winning football games, so I want to see how far they can go. I'm only skeptical because they are a young team, because they have a rookie quarterback, and although he's throwing for over 900 yards in his first 3 starts, I want it to keep going. But I have to be skeptical. I have to step off the gas a little bit, and I have to just watch it, kind of as a football guy. And one thing to be true, because I do want to touch on this point, getting back to Arizona just a little bit, because the Arizona Cardinals beat the Dallas Cowboys, that doesn't jump them ahead of the Dallas Cowboys. That's just not how it works. That would be me saying that, okay, if we lose to a team, that's meaning that the Dallas Cowboys are in a situation where they're hunting talent. It just doesn't work like that. It really doesn't, because yes, they had a loss. Yes, they came out, and I feel like they underestimated those guys. I feel like the Arizona Cardinals out-physicaled them, out-coached them, and out-schemed them. But they're not a better team. And I think that we can't overreact just off one game. We have a 3-game body of work to work with right now. So I don't want to talk about 22. 2022 doesn't matter in these tiers. But what I will say is that I saw week 1 and week 2. So I have to look at that. And that definitely does equate into how I'm viewing these teams right now. But getting into the New York Giants, the next team I have in skeptical / sneaky, I have a down arrow with them. But when I look at the New York Giants, I think it's funny to me that I believe that they're starting off extremely slow. And it was no Saquon Barkley against the San Francisco 49ers, but I believe that you're putting yourselves in positions where you faced some pretty good teams. What we see about the Arizona Cardinals, yes, a lot of people say they don't have the roster talent. They're going to get Caleb Williams, but they're still playing like a pretty good team right now. We had to say that with Jonathan Gannon. You played the San Francisco 49ers. You played the Dallas Cowboys in week 1. When you play, you maybe can come back. If you're playing the Arizona Cardinals, they're not the Dallas Cowboys. They're not the San Francisco 49ers to where they put their foot on your neck. They're not going to let up because they're too talented to let up. Even if Mike McCarthy is not calling the best plays, even if Dan Quinn does not call the best plays, even though I think he is one of the better coordinators, even if Kyle Shanahan gets away from his running game, Brock Purdy struggles a little bit, their talent is going to overcome some of that. And you're going to find yourself in situations where, okay, maybe we think we're coming back. Maybe we're down 2 scores. Boom. Now Deebo Samuel is going. Now he's breaking a couple tackles. Boom. Now Tony Pollard is going. Now Micah Parsons is getting a sack. So I'm looking at that and I'm saying you have to play error-free football. Penalties are a thing. Turnovers are a thing. But when you have it consistently and you're shooting yourselves in the foot with the 3-and-out, with the drop passes, with some of these different things, with failing the protection schemes, I think you just have to start it off faster. And like I said, I don't know if it's Brian Dable. I don't know if it's Mike Kafka. I don't know if it's Wink Martindale. But somebody in the room has to really come out and say, we got to be better than this. We got to start the football game off better than this. And also, please get Jalen Hyatt involved just a little bit. Just try him out a little bit. Give him some touches. Give him some targets. One thing I'll say. But I believe that when I look at the general scope of the team, I'm skeptical because of how they played, and they have a tough schedule ahead of them. You're in an 0-3 hole, so it's gonna be tough unless you get on a run, get flowing, and get hot with your hair on fire to make the playoffs. But I still think they can. So it's sneaky, but it's also skeptical right now. And the same thing with the Tennessee Titans. I think that in the loss to the Cleveland Browns, I do want to say I believe that this was a little more on the Cleveland Browns. I was surprised in how Deshaun Watson played. He came back and he looked efficient. Amari Cooper, some of the weapons that he has, Elijah Moore, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and then Jerome Ford. He's running the football. They signed Kareem Hunt. They still got Pierre Strong, so they're solid right now. And we know the defense is elite. I was never worried about the defense, but I was worried if Deshaun could get it clicking. He got it clicking a bit in the last game in week 3. So with the Titans, I think that, do we want to say that we want to get away from Ryan Tannehill? Is that something that you want to say? Titans fans, let me know if you're watching the video. I believe in Mike Vrabel. I believe that he is a head coach that is going to try to gut it out. I don't think this season is over, even with the record that they have right now. And like I said, you have Traylon Burks, you have Chiga Konku, you have DeAndre Hopkins, who looked pretty solid in week 3, and Derrick Henry. The run game hasn't been able to get going just yet, but I think stay consistent with it. So many people say it, and it's true, because running the football, it's not just giving 5 carries and expecting it to pop. It's a mindset. You have to stick with it and be consistent, because, okay, yeah, you may get 3, you may get 4, you may get -1, and then you may get 2, and then you may get 17, and then you may get 7, and then you may get 20, and then you may get 30. So stick with that. Continue to run Derrick Henry. I don't think he's regressed. I do think he is a good back still. So I just want to see how they get that flowing. And then defensively, cleaning up a couple things in the back end. I think that's the first thing we have to talk about, and trying to generate more of a pass rush. You just paid Jeffrey Simmons. You got some of those other guys. So I'm watching that, and I want to see Harold Landry back healthy. So I'm keeping my eyes on the Tennessee Titans. I'm skeptical right now, mainly because of Ryan Tannehill, but it's also sneaky. And then looking at the Washington Commanders, I still like this team. And a lot of people criticized when I said that I still want to see some more out of them, because I did. I wanted to see how you look against the Buffalo, like I aforementioned, and you look like you looked in that game, particularly in Sam Howell. I was surprised because I see how he played in week 2 against the Denver Broncos in the comeback fashion. And then you go out there this week, and also the running game wasn't as dominant. Just some things weren't working. Now, I do think the Buffalo Bills are a top 5 defense. Leslie Frazier stepped away, but Sean McDermott, I said it in the video 2 days ago. I'm starting to give him the benefit of the doubt, because he's been holding things steady for a long time now. I believe he's reaching close to a decade with the Buffalo Bills, and they've been consistent from Tyrod Taylor to the transition into Josh Allen, some of those different things, even with LaShawn McCoy. So I'm looking at that. I do respect it, in fact. But I think that stepping away a little bit, getting into this optimistic tier. Now, the Green Bay Packers, I like that you came back. I was concerned a bit with how you got down. And one thing I'll say, Jordan Love he's going to be very good, actually, because just seeing how he plays quarterback in the pocket, how he processes with the football in his throwing motion, it's smooth. His footwork is smooth. He's a very good young quarterback. And of course, he's not perfect, does have some things to work on, but we can nitpick any quarterback in the NFL. I think the baseline things that you need to be a successful quarterback, he has it. Some of those weapons that we're looking at, Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reeds of the world, he's going to have, when fully healthy, you have a Christian Watson, a Romeo Dobbs. Like I said, you have Wicks, you have Tucker Kraft, and Luke Musgrave. So that's some really good weaponry to work with. Now, I think when talking about the running backs in the backfield, I do like Aaron Jones, but A.J. Dillon, he just doesn't look like the smoothest runner of the football, or maybe it's just me. That's something I'm looking at. He is a very powerful back. He gets underneath his pads, but he just doesn't look explosive while doing it, if you understand what I'm saying. So I think that it's a way I want to say this. If the Green Bay Packers beat the Detroit Lions, I'm going to be very, very optimistic about them, but I still want to see some more, because it depends on the manner in which the game goes. I think that if it's a close game, both teams remain in my optimism tier because I like both teams. But if the Detroit Lions go out there and handle business like they handled business in week 2, and I talked about a team on the bridge, this is the team on the bridge looking to either burn it or extend it. I really like what they did in week 3. And you play against the Atlanta Falcons, and the defense shakes back after the week 2 struggles against the Seattle Seahawks. Now, what I'm seeing from the Seattle Seahawks, especially against Carolina, although Shaq Thompson is hurt, J.C. Horn is hurt, but I'm still looking at that team, and I like the defensive pieces, Brian Burns on that team. And I think that they're going to be a good offense. Geno Smith, he's looking like he did last year. Jackson Smith, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. So I understand you played a good offense, but still defensively, you want to be a little better in that game, get some more pass rush. And then I think you come back and you get 7 sacks in week 3 for the Detroit Lions. Aaron Glenn shakes back. The offense, although they didn't put up a ton of points, I still love Ben Johnson. I'm going to love him every game. I believe he's going to get a head coaching job. But I think that if they handedly win this, I'm putting them in confidence/contenders. I want to do it right now, but because they play on Thursday, and there's a couple variables that I'm looking at, and also with Desmond Ridder, I have some things to say about him as well because I still like the team, but man, you got to be a better passer of the football. They have to have better passing concepts in Atlanta. So that's one thing I'm looking at as well. But also, like I said, Ben Johnson, we're going to love the offense. Jameson Williams is going to be back. We're looking at Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I said he's in the category now where he's an elite receiver, bona fide. I know what I'm getting from Amon-Ra St. Brown every single time. And you got to love that for a player. Jahmyr Gibbs, and really, I said, the battle of the backs. Now, he did outplay, had a little more touches, but he outplayed Bijan Robinson. I still think Bijan, to me, he's a better back. I would just say he's a better back to me, but Jahmyr Gibbs, I think both teams are happy with what they did, if that makes any sense to you. And I look at how he performed. You know, he had Zonovan Knight, some of the other guys in the backfield, but it was really his show. Catching the football a little bit, running the football. I'm still surprised just how he gets behind his pads. Like I said 2 days ago, I saw a guy who was explosive. I saw a guy on wide zone who can run through a wide open gap and take it 80 yards. But I'm seeing a guy who can consistently get 3 to 4, get 5 to 7. So when you have that in the backfield and then he still has the explosion in this game, I think that we're going to be in a very good spot. Barring health, with Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs, we're looking at 2 backs who could be top 5. If everything goes out and they get the touches, everything plays out like we expect it to, I believe in these 2 backs. So that's one thing I want to say. Even though you say don't draft a running back in the first round, I think these 2 teams are pretty happy with those players. So like I said, from the defense, Aiden Hudson, he got 2 sacks. He got after it. We look at some of the guys in the back end. Brian Branch, we're having a video come out on him very soon. It's going to be an interesting video as well. Stay tuned for that. But Cam Sutton, Tracy Walker, some of those guys, Ife Melifonwu. So you're looking at that and you're saying Benito Jones. I'm very confident in this team. I just want to see how they play against the Green Bay Packers. So I'm holding off just a bit just for that reason. Now, getting into the Cincinnati Bengals, though, I think a very interesting team when we come back to it and talk about it. But they've been a team who've kind of had that New York Giants syndrome to an extent. But they just have a little more talent offensively. And they've been able to shake back, and they won against the LA Rams. But I think that defensively, Trey Hendrickson, he's one of the most underrated pass rushers in the game. Sam Hubbard, he's also very good too. And then we have DJ Reader, of course, on the inside, Logan Wilson. We can go all day with those guys, but I think when looking at the grand scheme of things, the defense played their tails off against the LA Rams offense. Now, they showed some things about that offensive line. And I knew some things about the offensive line after the San Francisco game, but I just was surprised how Matthew Stafford couldn't really get into that flow like we saw. And even when he did get into the flow, then he would pull it back, step back a little bit with the interception. So that's one thing that I have to say when looking at that game. But I think that Joe Burrow, he is lingering. Right now, I can tell that he's hurt just a bit with the calf, and they start off slow. T. Higgins has not been getting involved, especially in the first half. Now, you look at the Baltimore Ravens game, he comes back in the second half and gets 2 touchdowns. But I think that when we look at this game against the LA Rams, it was a Jamar Chase show. And really hats off to him because that's everything they needed. Joe Mixon ran the football just a little bit, not an explosive game, but he ran it enough to keep the Rams honest. And I think that they're just going to have to continue to get a little better piece by piece. I'm very confident in this team, but they moved down a tier for me because I'm seeing some things that I could potentially be worried about. If Joe Burrow doesn't ever, and I said I never saw somebody get healthier during the course of an NFL season. So I'm watching it. I'm not out on the Cincinnati Bengals. I just think they have to move down just a little bit after kind of a skeptical performance against the LA Rams. But still, a team you have to watch out for. Again, these are my playoff teams. Now, getting into the Jacksonville Jaguars, they have a down arrow. And I point to now against the Houston Texans, I was surprised defensively how CJ Stroud got so comfortable and how he was making some really tough throws and really in tight pockets. Even where, okay, we condense the pocket down. We got a Josh Allen, we got a Travon Walker, and we're power rushing on the edges and condensing this pocket. He's stepping into it and he's firing it. Firing the deep out, firing those hitches. So I'm looking at all of that. I'm saying, is that more on CJ Stroud or is that more on Jacksonville? That's a different topic for a different segment, but I still think that defensively, I was just surprised how they performed in that game. Offensively, though, have to get it going. Have a lot of weapons. Got Calvin Ridley back. Of course, you have Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Travis Etienne in the back end. I think that they're going to get it together. Doug Peterson is never going to be out. I love what he is as an offensive mind in this game. So with the laws, I have to take it back just a little bit. Not if you had to tell me right now that this is a team that could make a run in the playoffs, I would be a little shaky. Now, when looking at the South, I am confident they could still win the South. But the Texans, we see the Colts right now. We see the South is looking pretty solid. So who expected this right now for the South to look like it looks? But I'm still thinking that I'm optimistic about them. I want to see what they do in week 4. And then the rest of my tiers to really wrap it up. A lot of these tiers really stayed stagnant. A lot of good football from some of these teams. But I think the biggest thing in which I'm looking at is that Miami created their own new tier. I still think the 49ers are dominant. I'm not overreacting to the Dallas Cowboys loss because they have a body of work rather than just one game. And then I think the biggest thing is that if they score in the red zone, a lot of these problems will go away. They truly would. Now, they're going to have to stop the run. That's the biggest problem that I see. The elite defense has a quote-unquote leak, and they tried to address it. I talked about this in a couple of days ago in that video. But when you run at Micah Parsons and you have some of those guys in the middle, you draft a Mozzie Smith, a Jonathan Hankins, a Ziggy. I'm looking at that and I'm saying, we're not effective as we thought we were. Because with the New York Jets, they got behind the sticks a little bit. Penalties, some of those different types of things. Or maybe you start the run on first down and they just get out of it. They get away from the entire run game. The New York Giants, they were down, so they couldn't really effectively try to run the football because you want to try to pass the ball and come back. So I'm looking at that and I'm saying, okay, just one thing that I'm looking for with the Dallas Cowboys. But overall, let me know what you guys think. Some pretty good takeaways, some pretty good football in week 3. We're going on 34 minutes right now, actually, so I do want to wrap this up. Of course, I know there are some football fans who really just love the game and will actually watch all of this. So if you're one of those guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I love doing the in-depth breakdowns, even though sometimes, we try to get down the video length. But if I do that, and I don't get the full take, then you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, but does he really feel this way? Is he 100% sure? And one thing I'll say is that if all of my subscribers can vouch for me. I talk in the comments and I talk about my takes. I discuss, we go back and forth. We talk about different things and it's never negative. It's never aimed for a negative outcome. It's always positive and good hearted. We don't always agree and that's perfectly fine because we love the game and we love talking about sports. So that's going to do it for today's show. Of course, this is everything we have. I really went in depth with the teams on the arrows, but if you want me to take it back a little bit and then go more in depth on every team that I have right here, I think we could do that as well. Just let me know with some feedback in the comments. And like I said, Baltimore Ravens, next time, kick the field goal. You got Justin Tucker. He had 2 opportunities to do it. I understand he missed a 56. I think it was a 56 to a 59 yarder, and he missed it, came up just a bit short. Kick the 62, and you win the game against the Indianapolis Colts. Thank you for watching.